Today, folks, I want to give you some insight today in my largest single stock investment I've ever made. This thing is a dividend growth beast, and I invested over $30,000 since January into Taiwan Semiconductors. Yes, we're talking about the semiconductor space with my best purchase shares in my tax-free savings account, where I still have 202 shares at an average price of around $76 ever since the volatility of Buffett buying and trading in and out of this thing. And I'm going to try and share with you today why I can't bring myself to sell this yet. And we're going to be doing a side-by-side comparison with the likes of NVIDIA. We're going to be going through their balance sheet. We're going to talk about the dividend comparables, the growth, and so much more in between. So if that's a conversation you'd appreciate, I promise you that if you watch this video, you're going to learn a lot. So hit that like button, because first and foremost, NVIDIA, if I was a more lucky, stupid investor, I would have just bought this in January. I'm not saying anyone that bought this in January was stupid. It's just that the value here sits at a whopping PE of 152. The stock trades for $650 billion, damn it. And there's no way to wrap your head around the valuation, as we're going to see when we do the side-by-side comparables, whereas TSM is only up 22% year to date, trading for 150 billion less in the market cap with a PE of 14. So I want to share with you, and we're not going to be talking about the base news, if it's worth that value with the likelihood of China perhaps invading Taiwan. I don't want anything to do with the geopolitics. I just want to focus purely on the balance sheets and just the pure fundamentals. So firstly, let's talk about what everyone loves, the dividends. You know, trying to collect income while you wait for capital growth is probably one of the best feelings on the planet. And when we're talking about NVIDIA here, they've done some mild, super mild increases. Last time I think it was in 2018, but since 2019, no dividend increases whatsoever. I think they are doing share buybacks, which is also beneficial, but not a dividend-focused company. Taiwan Semiconductors, a little bit more volatile in the dividends. Since 2019, they went from paying an annual dividend to a quarterly dividend. And keep in mind, their money is made in Taiwanese dollars that has to get converted to USD before it's paid out to shareholders. So there is some volatility in this dividend. But 2019, it was around 32 to 42 cents, whereas today it's trading between 45, roughly between 45 and 50 cents. It's been quite a bit volatile, again, because the US dollar in this market has been all over the place. But talking about some of the growth numbers, EPS, earnings per share, gets reported every single quarter. Taking a look at NVIDIA here, you know, in the peak of the market here in 2022, NVIDIA was bringing in $3.85 per share, right? And well, on the quarterly, about $1.18, but it's come down so much. I mean, they've gone through a period of just EPS declining all the way back to where it was in 2018. So this company isn't seeing EPS growth currently, whereas Taiwan Semiconductors has seen consistent growth and hasn't broken that trend all the way since 2019. So Taiwan Semiconductors is crushing it from an EPS growth standpoint. And when you take a look at their actual revenue here, which we're going to take a look at a little deeply, they post this month over month, and in January, they're one of the few companies that is still experiencing revenue growth. Pretty astoundingly to be in the double digits, for a matter of fact. I mean, not even Facebook or Apple are really double-digit growth period in revenue right now. So this is pretty astounding, to say the least. And they're one of the few companies that are actually still hiring employees, unlike Amazon, Facebook. They're all laying off employees. This company is insanely resilient in this current market cycle, right? So let's talk about the revenue itself. I mean, again, peaked for, you know, NVIDIA back in 2022, and they've been seeing a slow decline in the revenue and actually hitting again a negative for the first time since 2019. Taking a look at Taiwan Semiconductors, they have not broke the streak of revenue growth and continue to see very consistent revenue growth. Keep in mind, Taiwan Semiconductors sells their most advanced chips to NVIDIA, so it's kind of wild to consider. Now, talking about the market cap, let's get into the numbers. Let's see the actual comparables of free cash flow, assets minus liabilities, just to see the difference. So first of all, free cash flow for NVIDIA sitting around 3.8 billion. Taiwan Semiconductors, their free cash flow is sitting around 17 billion converted to USD. This is in Taiwan's dollars again, so they're sitting at 522 billion, roughly Taiwanese dollars. Again, converted to US is about 17. So they're doing way more free cash flow than NVIDIA is. From the balance sheet perspective, NVIDIA, you know, sitting on about 44 billion in assets and about 17 billion in liabilities. Very healthy balance sheet from that perspective of it. But taking a look at Taiwan again here, guys, Taiwan Semiconductor sitting at 3.7 trillion in assets against 1.5 trillion in liabilities. It's 163 billion dollars in underlying assets. So they're like 3x the amount of total assets that the likes of NVIDIA has, yet they trade for a less valued market cap, which is just so mind-blowing to me. We want to take a look at the deep ones and zeros. This is where things get really, really crazy for this company. So NVIDIA, first and foremost, let's talk about NVIDIA here, guys. Their profit margins set at about 16% and their operating margins are around 20%, and they have about a 68% institutional ownership with about 4.21% of insiders. Very few shares outstanding are shorted right now at about 1.59%, which is still historically pretty high. A lot of big tech companies are being shorted right now in the current recessionary environment. The payout ratio is super low here at 9.2% as well, but in comparison to Taiwan Semiconductors, this is where things get just nutty. Taiwan Semiconductors profitability, their profit margins are at almost 45%. Their operating margins at 49, beating the likes of all the mega cap tech companies, basically the likes of Apple. These are like the highest pretty much in the industry. Like to get profit margins up there is just, it's unheard of, right? And held by institutions doesn't make any sense to me because the institutional ownership in this company is 17%. It is nowhere near close to the institutional ownership of NVIDIA. It's kind of one of my bull cases for this company. If we get past the geopolitics, which again, the US said if China ever invaded Taiwan, that they would back them up because it's a national security risk. Taiwan Semiconductor said they're not going to be selling advanced chips to China. There's a lot of friction there that scares these big institutions. But this is what's holding back the company because there's just no way NVIDIA deserves such a high justified value and Taiwan Semiconductors doesn't. When NVIDIA fully relies on TSM for their most advanced chips, all the crazy stuff NVIDIA is doing, they can't do it without TSM. So it's crazy that institutions give it such a higher valuation and the ability to hold it at these valuations compared to the company they rely on, like Taiwan Semiconductors. Doesn't make any sense. So that's just something to pay attention to. Now, because this is a dividend more focused company, they pay out a higher yield. Their payout ratio sits at about 28%, which honestly, in the world of dividend payers, this is insane. Most dividend payers pay between 40 to 50%. The really good ones, the dividend aristocrats, and this thing even pays out less than them. So ideally, this is an insane dividend growth beast. They have an incredible payout ratio. They increase the dividend regularly. I mean, in comparison to the competitors in their space, like when you're talking about Intel, which is fighting to catch up, they're building all these fab facilities, NVIDIA, that it's just crazy to me that this is the industry leader and a true moat that makes up 50% of the semiconductor industry, yet it trades at a value that is such discounted to the likes of any tech company in the US. It's just wild to try and think about that, right? And just taking a look at the markets today, guys, it's been a pretty steady eddy flatlining since last week. We're still seeing a little bit of green across the board with a lot of my indexes, but tech companies are mostly selling off today. No exception to TSM here, Meta. So it looks like tech is not doing as well to start the week, but I will pass the question off to you. I'd love to know what you guys think about the semiconductor space. I know a lot of you love buying the semiconductor ETFs, but I really think the entire industry pretty much relies on Taiwan Semiconductor. So I don't want to diversify by buying the ETF. Yes, I think ASML is another great semiconductor stock. They make up the machines that are producing the fundamentals of the chips. But again, they also trade at a wicked valuation. So let me know what you think. I'd love to hear about it in that comment section below.